When your website slows to a crawl, the natural instinct is to pull out your credit card and upgrade to the cloud. Hosting providers aggressively market their mid- and top-tier plans as a direct upgrade to your site's speed. But this chart shows the reality of modern hardware. A well-tuned shared hosting account running Lightspeed consistently serves a page faster than an untuned cloud instance running Apache. Both environments can easily load a page in under 100 milliseconds. Once you add a standard page cache, the response time plummets on both setups until they are nearly identical. Your software stack and your caching rules dictate your page speed, not the label on your hosting plan. Since raw hardware speed is a tie, the higher price of an upgraded tier represents an investment in isolation and a shift in your operational risk. Most guides explain hosting tiers using a real estate analogy. Shared hosting is an apartment building, and dedicated hosting is a detached house. That analogy hides the most important part of the transaction. It completely ignores who is responsible for fixing the plumbing when a pipe bursts. This diagram shows the true differentiator between tiers: resource isolation and a concept we call the failure blast radius. The center dot is your website, and the rings represent how far a server failure spreads. Moving up a hosting tier pulls those rings back. You isolate yourself from the bad code and traffic spikes of the other accounts on the machine. But moving up a tier simultaneously widens the radius of your own mistakes. A failure inside your environment now pushes outward to take down everything you host. Choosing a hosting tier ultimately means deciding which specific server failures you have the technical skills to manage. Shared hosting is the entry-level tier. It offers a low, fixed monthly cost and carries zero administrative burden because the provider manages the operating system. Using CageFS, the isolation boundary is drawn inside the kernel. If a neighbor's script breaks, it hits a hard limit and stops. These virtualized walls also turn solid. A compromised neighboring account cannot see your environment, read configurations, or access your files. The trade-off for this protection is an artificial ceiling. To keep the server stable for everyone, your specific account is strictly capped on how many PHP processes it can run simultaneously. If you get a massive traffic spike that bypasses your cache, like hundreds of people checking out at once, you will exhaust that limit. The server will return 503 errors to your visitors, even if the physical machine has plenty of unused CPU. Shared hosting entirely protects you from server administration, but it strictly limits the maximum volume of uncacheable traffic you can process. Cloud and VPS hosting form the middle tier. These plans move to metered billing and provide root access, granting total control over the server environment. Look at the isolation ladder matrix. The isolation mechanism shifts down to the hypervisor boundary, giving every guest instance a private kernel. Now, a bad neighbor can completely crash their operating system, and your instance won't even register a blip. That independence requires a heavy administrative tax. Root access means you own the environment. You patch the operating system, monitor the security logs, and maintain the software stock yourself. You also take on direct financial exposure. With metered billing, unexpected traffic surges won't result in a contained 503 error. They result in a massive invoice at the end of the month. Moving to a VPS trades artificial traffic caps for financial risk and the ongoing burden of server maintenance. Dedicated hosting is the premium tier. You rent the physical hardware in a data center, and you have zero co-tenants. Removing the hypervisor eliminates any competition for system resources. You no longer share a processor or memory cache, which guarantees highly predictable tail latency for complex databases. This physical boundary is often a strict requirement for enterprise organizations. Specific data compliance rules require single tenancy to ensure absolute data isolation. Returning to the matrix, you see the ultimate trade-off. The user now owns the entire failure blast radius. There are no virtual safety nets. If a single memory stick fails, every website hosted on that machine goes down instantly. You inherit the physical hardware lifecycle. You must proactively plan for parts degrading, coordinate physical repair times, and manage hardware migrations before the machine fails. Dedicated hosting delivers absolute performance predictability. In exchange, single-tenant performance means you accept single-tenant risk. Understanding these technical boundaries lets you replace vague upgrade anxiety with a concrete logic test. Map your decision with the isolation matcher. First note, is traffic mostly uncacheable? Cached readers barely touch the server, but active shoppers bypass the cache, requiring heavy processing. Next fork. Do you have a sysadmin to manage a private kernel and patch the OS? The final requirement checks your legal boundaries. Do you operate under industry compliance regulations that strictly mandate single tenancy? Your answers to these specific constraints dictate your hosting tier. Hitting a round number of monthly visitors does not. If you are a solopreneur or small business with mostly cached traffic and no system administrator, do not leave shared hosting. Measure your ratio of cached to uncached requests before spending money on cloud marketing. A tuned shared account will serve your pages perfectly while protecting you from server maintenance. If you operate an e-commerce site or an agency processing hundreds of uncacheable daily orders, a shared worker allocation will eventually buckle. At that volume, you need the burst headroom of a VPS, but do not make that move until you are prepared to secure the operating system yourself, or until you hire someone who can. For enterprise targets, where latency targets are rigid and compliance rules are strict, dedicated hardware is the only path forward, provided you have the physical failovers ready for when a component inevitably breaks. Stop buying a hosting tier based on its marketing label. Evaluate your technical capabilities and pay for the specific isolation boundary you can actually support.